Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're taking a look at post-rotation Mew VMAX Genesect. That is like one of the only few decks that will actually, most of the deck will actually be surviving rotation. I've been playing Mew in Standard right now, and I just modified my list a little bit to make this video. And the only card that rotates is actually going to be Quick Ball. And now, admittedly, Quick Ball is a pretty big loss. There's a lot of downsides that come with losing Quick Ball. The main one being, of course, that you cannot get out Genesect as easy. But I'll talk about those downsides more in a minute. Yeah, this is going to be the Mew VMAX Genesect with Judge, but, Judge Path still as strong as ever in the new format. This can just has the potential to steal games away from anything. And just the super effective damage from Mew VMAX allows it to just plow through some matchups. So let's get started here. Starting off with the Mew V, of course, which we're going to be playing 4 of. I've played Mew for a while, and I've always had the opinion that if you're not playing, if you're playing less than 4 Mew V, you're trolling, because it's not only the best starter, it also is for your retreat, and psychically it's pretty decent. You want to have as many extra Mew Vs in your deck if you ever want a Psychic Leap and you have to discard some of them. You want to have that one extra if you want to have the Psychic Leap option sometimes. And yeah, it's your best starter because it does have that free retreat. It allows you to freely move around, which is one of the strengths of Mew VMAX, is just how easy it is to move your Pokemon around usually. So yeah, if you're running less than 4, I think you are just making it harder for yourself for no reason. So you're running 4 copies of Mew V, and then of course 3 copies of Mew VMAX as well. And that's just pretty much the standard Mew stuff. Is the 4 Mew V, 3 Mew VMAX. And of course, this has the Cross Fusion Strike, allowing you to copy one of your benched Fusion Strike attacks, use this attack. Pretty much the only attack we will ever be using is Technoblast on Genesect V. But like I just said, sometimes Psychic Leap is a pretty good option. It's pretty good in a lot of Lost Box variants. Even Glistening Droplets on the Oricorio is not a bad option sometimes, depending. Then we, of course, also we can copy Max Miracle sometimes. In these situations where we don't want to have to pivot in and out because of our Technoblast that says we can attack next turn. Speaking of the Genesect for Genesect V, should be pretty obvious. I'm pretty sure no one has the guts to run less than 4 Genesect. Is just one of the best draw abilities ever printed in the history of the game. The Fusion Strike system allowing you to draw until you have the same number of cards in your hand as the Fusion Strike Pokemon to play. And the attack is just the best attack in your deck. So just overall, really, really cracked card. And then, like I mentioned, one a copy of Oricorio. This is pretty good in the Miraidon decks, actually, along with the Miraidon decks running with the Regieleki. If they have 3 Regieleki in play, they're going to be boosting their attacks by 90. That will put their Proton Blaster all the way up to that 310, which will KO your Mew VMAX, but it won't KO with Oricorio, which means you're going to force them to find that 4th Regieleki VMAX, which is going to be pretty hard to do, especially if you just target down one of those Regielekis. It could be kind of annoying for them to take a knockout or a one-shot on a Mew VMAX with the Oricorio. So that is just one of the uses that comes to mind when I think of Oricorio immediately. But of course, it's just sometimes some matches giving out your Mew VMAX is just a little bit more survivability. Also, it's always been pretty good in the Arceus, allowing it so that their Arceus V-Star cannot KO your Mew V. Same thing here. Allow any Arceus V-Stars trying to come in, they will actually not be able to KO a Mew V if you have Oricorio. So it's really, really solid card. And additionally, if there's any really good deck that has to evolve their Pokemon to an EX, the free evolution has 50 HP. Glistening Droplets might actually be a pretty funny option, just being able to just go snipe that for a prize. If that's ever something that I can't see in the future, but if you're watching this in the future and that's the thing, that might be an option. We have our supporters, which are going to be 2 Judge. I would really like another, but for now we're going to be running 2. 1 copy of Cyllene, because being able to get back resources is really, really nice, especially losing Quick Ball. We lose a little bit less ways to discard cards from our hands, so sometimes if you can just Cyllene, if you just get 1 hit, you can just put a stack of Ultra Ball on top to help you draw through your deck more. But usually this will be used for getting back Power Tablets. It can also help you deal with awkward prizing if you prize 2 of your Mew VMAX, and one of them gets knocked out. You don't have access to the other one because you got a little bit unlucky, didn't pick up the prize cards. Cyllene can just kind of it just gives you a lot of wiggle room in your entire deck, which is really really handy. Then we have one copy of Roxanne, which is kind of like the power card in the deck, or at least in Mew Path decks for a while, has been the ability to just go Roxanne and Path in the late game, as well as Judge Path in the early game. That's something that also Cyllene can help you with, is that you only run 2 paths. Sometimes you can just Cyllene it back on top. So you do have access to that third copy, which can be useful if you're trying to pull off like the Judge Path in the early game and the Roxanne Path in the late game. That's kind of the idea of this deck, and how the idea always kind of has been, is that you are a really, really your deck that can be really, really fast and aggressive, but can also be really, really disruptive, both in the early, mid, and late games. You're just basically saying, I'm going to Judge and I'm going to Path you, and I'm going to Roxanne you, and I'm just going to be slapping all your Pokemon for minimum of 2 shots, which is really, really strong. Roxanne is just definitely one of the best cards in the deck. We have one copy of Serena and one copy of Boss for Gusting. I could see you cutting down on the Serenas, adding a second boss if you want, because if you want to be able to gust Pokemon EX, Serena does not actually work on that. But Serena is actually a draw supporter when you need it to be, which is definitely really, really handy. I have had that come up before. And being able to Serena to discard, especially in this one we're losing Quick Ball, we don't have access to as easy discard anymore. Being able to like just discard a clunky hand with Serena can be nice. And additionally, I've seen some Mew lists, Post Rotation running Arven. And Arven seems okay if you want to add it. It can help you pull off like cool power tablet plays. But I really noticed when especially I was watching gameplay of Post Rotation Mew VMAX, sometimes that Arven can just like, you can just draw it when like you don't need it, and it does not help your situation in terms of discarding cards in your hand and drawing more. Arven can just kind of be annoying, especially when you already use a Judge or a Boss that turn. It's just kind of just clunky. But I definitely do see the merits if you want to try it. Like maybe you could just cut the Serena for an Arven. I mean, you already have 4 cross switchers, so that Arven can be kind of like that next boss. Sometimes you just being able to search out a cross switcher and like a Force Seal, and then Force Seals with the cross switcher. So like it's kind of like a pseudo boss. So if you want to try out the Arven over Serena, I wouldn't hate it. But I just really like the Serena having that immediate gust, as well as that like pretty nice discard and draw option, which usually is not very good in a lot of decks. But in this one, it's pretty good because you just have Genesect alongside of it. Now going into our item cards, we're going to be running the classic Mew, pretty much, which is 4 Ultra Ball. 4 Ultra Ball, and I really should not have to talk about this. Ultra Ball is just insane. We are losing Quick Ball, which makes Ultra Ball even more important. Next, we have Power Tablets, 4 Power Tablets in the deck as well. Power Tablet is going to allow us to increase that Mew VMAX attack range all the way to that 280 mark usually, which will help you KO the Arceus V-Stars, the Girautinas. There's a single Power Tablet. Choice Bell doesn't actually work against Miraidon, because Miraidon EX is an EX, of course, not a V. So you are going to have to play a Power Tablet if you want to ever KO Miraidon EX. So has a lot of uses, of course, just one of the best cards in the deck, just because Electric Power is just a really good card, and having it for one of the best overall decks ever printed is nuts. More consistency is going to be 4 Cram-o-matic. And if you ever want to tuck Cram-o-matics for trekking shoes, I could see that. But for now, we're just running 4 Crams. Because like I mentioned, having that extra discard being lost with Quick Ball is a really big deal. So we kind of want to run the maximum amount of like discarding that we can, which is going to be in the form of that 4 Ultra Ball and 4 Cram-o-matic. We have 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass, of course. Once again, just pretty much a standard in Mew these days. Being able to get out multiple Genesects really aggressively is super duper good. So we have the 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass. And then 4 copies of Cross Switcher as the final 4 of item in the deck at least. This deck makes really, really good use of Cross Switcher. Palkia and this deck are probably the 2 decks that have made the best use of Cross Switcher. This deck having aggressive draw with Genesect, Palkia having aggressive Irida, or multiple copies of Irida in their deck to be able to use the Cross Switcher is pretty good. But this one, like I said, if you just have a Cross Switcher and you thin your hand of everything but the Cross Switcher, you get to draw 5. And if you hit the second cross switcher, you get to Judge and Gust in the same turn, which is really good. Roxanne and Gust in the same turn is really good. Cyllene and Gust in the same turn is really good. Just being able to use this Gust in combination with all your like power supporters, like I said, the Roxanne and the Cyllene, it's really really good. And just always having that option that even since I'm playing a Judge right now, I can still Gust you and I can still just kind of pull the rug out from under your feet. Is just insane. Like Gust and KO whatever you want alongside. Set your opponent's hand down to 4 is insane. Then we have a couple items, 2 copies of Nest Ball, and if you're looking at this or if you're thinking of Mew post rotation for the first time, I'd be saying like only 2 Nest Ball. That seems a little bit weird. Why don't you run 4 and it's basically just replace those Quick Balls, and that's because Quick Ball does allow you to not only discard a card when you play it, but it's always instantly playable. No matter even if you have a full bench, you can still play Quick Ball. But the same is not true for Nest Ball. If you have a full bench, you actually can't play Nest Ball, which makes Nest Ball kind of clunky, annoyingly, to have in your hand. That's another one of the main reasons that losing Quick Ball is a pretty big annoyance. Is now Nest Ball is not nearly as good, and we can't run for Nest Ball because they're not burnable instantly like Quick Ball was. Quick Ball not only let you just play itself instantly, but also let you discard a card, thin a card from your hand, and that's why you're seeing the 4 Cram-o-matics. Is just to try and like help remedy that loss of discard synergy as much as possible. And alongside that loss of discard synergy, we need to kind of help remedy the loss of Pokemon Search. So we're running 2 Nest Ball and 2 Feather Ball. Now Feather Ball actually can be burned immediately. You can just play and just not get anything and shuffle your deck. But Feather Ball is better over the 2 Ultra Balls because you can also burn it. But unfortunately, this one only will get the Mew VMAXs, which is still pretty nice to have, but it's not nearly as good as Quick Ball. So it kind of feels bad having to run a split now of these search cards, but it is what it is. If you want to try cutting a Feather Ball for a Nest Ball, so you have that 3 Nest Ball, maybe that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. That's also an option too if you want. We have 2 copies of Escape Rope. And this is because Klefki is coming out, and Klefki is a really big deal for your deck. It's basically a searchable Path to Peak, which is not what Mew wants to see after having like a year of having to deal with Path. Escape Rope is going to be able to force that Klefki to the bench. Oftentimes I found like some Klefki decks aren't going to be able to put the resources towards finding that second Klefki. Sometimes you just want to put one up and then like hope that you don't have to find a way to get out of it. Something else you could do to help against Klefki is if you could cut Escape Rope for a third Judge. You just have the extra draw supporter, so you're not entirely relying on Genesect for the most part. You can like have that Judge and maybe like draw into a Forest Seal Stone, and then Forest Seal Stone find like the second cross switch or something like that. But yeah, 2 copies of Escape Rope, and at the very worst, it's just like a really really solid card. Escape Rope hasn't been played in Mew for like its entire existence. It's just insanely good in this deck. Then we have 2 copies of Lost Vacuum. And this is because we're going to be playing our own paths. We want to way to bump our own paths. We have Lost Cities, but if we are going to be pathing our opponent and they are going to have them wait for a spawn, we still want a way to draw cards ourselves after our opponent, if our opponent leaves the path in play. So yeah, we have a way to remove that. Also, this can be really good. Forest Seal Stone is a pretty good card going into post rotation. A lot of decks I found are going to be playing at least one. So if your opponent like decides to attach that Forest Seal Stone early and not use it, you can just like immediately punish them and Lost Vacuum essentially a computer search from the board, which is really strong. And this is just get rid of like pesky tools like a Choice Belt, maybe threatening a knockout on a Mew. Then we have some final one of cards. We're gonna have 1 copy of Palpad, which can recycle Judges and Roxanne. We can Roxanne twice in the same game, which is just like mind blowing. It's really good. Recycling Cyllene, so we have like even more resources, like potentially like 7, 8 power towers, which is only if you hit double heads on Cyllene. But just having that option to shuffle back a Cyllene if you already use it, or if you had to discard it preemptively early without getting value out of it, Palpad being able to shuffle that back in is really really good. Not to mention shuffling back Boss's Orders. We only have 2 sets of cross switchers and 1 boss. That's 3 gust outs. Usually you're gonna have to have the 4 at least in your deck ready to use, and Palpad can be that by either shuffling back the boss to just like have the immediate gust, or to shuffle back Cyllene to put back cross switchers potentially, and then 1 copy of Switch as well. Because sometimes we don't always want to force our opponent's Pokemon at the bench. That can be bad for us. If they have a Pokemon active we want to knock out. Um, we want to find a Gust alongside with the Escape Rope. We just have the switch right then and there. And of course, if you need more switches, you can just silent it back. And then we have our tool cards starting off with 2 Forest Seal Stone. Of course, just an insanely good item card or tool card that is essentially just a computer search. And we're running 2 of it. If you do use it, you can just vacuum it away. So there's like more discard synergy or more, I guess, like hand thinning synergy, not technically discard synergy, but more hand thinning discard synergy in order to draw more Genesect. We have alongside that Forest of Stone 2 Choice Belt as well. Because 220 is still a good number to hit post rotation, allowing you to KO a lot of Vs. Vs are still extremely popular. Okay, of course, it's like the same reasons that 220 is a good number right now in Mew. It's a good number post rotation, KOing Lugia Vs, Arceus Vs, Regieleki Vs, it doesn't work on Mirana, Palkia Vs, things like that. And then we're going to have our stadium cards, which are going to be 2 copies of Path to the Peak. Like I mentioned, if you want a third one, that's not something, or that's something that is pretty good. Having that third path can be nice. Like I mentioned, if you don't want to have that access to that third path, potentially you can just Cyllene it back, maybe, if you need that third path for the late game alongside Roxanne. And then our other 2 stadiums are going to be Lost City, and basically the idea here that I found is that Path to the Peak is annoying for the multiprizers, and Lost City is annoying for the single prizers, essentially. Because the single prizers usually are going to be looking to attack with themselves multiple times, like using Clara to retrieve themselves. So being able to just Lost Zone those is pretty good. And then like Path to Peak is annoying for like every multiplies, because pretty much all the multipliers that are good are having some sort of ability. This turns out Psychic Embrace, Tanning Unit, Luminous Sign, Summoning Star, all the good abilities, Starbirth. And Path to Peak is just good as ever for exactly that. And then we have our energy, which is for double turbo, of course, because this is the DTE build. And that is going to be my post-rotation Mew list. If you guys liked it, don't forget to like. If you guys want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. That's going to do it for the video. And I will see you guys in the next one.